Hello everyone, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you organizers for inviting me to share my thoughts on the IP issues in the digital world. We have about an hour and in that 1 hour I'd like to share with you my experiences. I'm a practicing lawyer and I have dealt on IP issues during my career. And there are some interesting stories that I have that I will share with you. So let's start. Of course, the digital world has expanded so fast that everyone is struggling to understand that where does it I mean, every day a new technology, every day a new website, a new social media platform is added, and there is an excitement that is created and everyone wants to know more about it. Now, is everyone able to hear me? I'm just trying to check whether I am audible enough. Okay. So why is the online world exploding? I think primarily one of the big reasons is the cheap data. We have seen that since the Geo and various other ISP internet service providers came on the block, the data has become so cheap that everyone is going online. I mean, I was speaking to some of my friends in US and they tell me that India is perhaps the most cheapest data plan country in the world today. We have, nowhere else you get 1 GB of data, every day at a cost that they provide us. Now, since the, and obviously there are other economic or, ecosystem factors as well due to which the internet is exploding. It started with, of course, we have a large population, and there were various things like the banks. There were, financial institutions, which had the limitations that they cannot open, the physical branches everywhere. People were looking for convenience, so people started to go online to avail those services. And as a result, the entire ecosystem for accessing things online started to develop. In the last 10 years, we've also seen a number of e-commerce platform coming, and as more and more people in the urban India, the town A and the town B, as the marketers call them, have started to buy goods online. These have started to explode as well on the internet. At the same time, social media has become quite popular. Everybody wants to be posting, getting connected with their friends, wanting to post what they have been doing. All those sort of things. I don't need to tell you, you know better, and that is also one of the reasons why the online space is exploding, and it is posing a lot of issues which we will be going into. Taking an example of some numbers, I was seeing that in 2015, the internet penetration in India was 300 million. Currently, it stands at roughly 700 million internet users. So you could see in less than 5 years' time, the internet population has exploded more than double. And particularly because we are a young country and we have a large population base which is under 21 years of age, and they are getting online to do everything. And last but not the least, we have seen since the last 4 or 5 months when the COVID started, more and more people want to avoid going to the shopping centers, supermarkets. At some stage they were not open. They are open now, but people are still shying away to enter into the crowded places. People want contactless deliveries. So as a result, the the online space due to the COVID-19, which is an irony, but has also started to explode. Um, in that context, my first topic is what are the issues which are coming up with the rise in the e-commerce portals in India? When we look at the e-commerce portals, we're talking, who are the stakeholders? We have on one side the consumers. Of course, these people who are buying, people like you and me, who go online and buy the goods. So they are the consumers of those goods. Then you have the brand owners, the IP owners who actually provide those goods online. Whether it is brands in the space of FMCG goods like the soaps, the shampoos and things like those, or the tech ready-made apparel, sports goods, etc. So there are a lot of these brand owners who are the stakeholders in an e-commerce portal. Then comes the e-commerce portals itself, the people who are the likes of Amazon, the likes of Flipkart, who are providing these space, who are creating these e-commerce portals, and they are one of the big stakeholders in the e-commerce space, because they are the one who are running this business. And last but not the least, the government is one of the stakeholders as well, as the government is providing the space to these government wants the policies to be in line with the two things. One is that the consumer is protected. The consumer is not getting goods which are of cheaper quality, or they are counterfeit or infringements. And also the government is making sure that there is a level playing field between the Indian companies and the foreign companies that would like to invest into the growing e-commerce market space, and as well as trying to protect the consumers from flood of the goods that can come, for example, from China. So we have seen in the last few years that there are certain Chinese portals which, without having to set up a business in India, they started to sell in India, because they created the apps and uploaded it on the app store of either Apple or Google or both. And people, because they were well known internationally, people started to download those apps and order goods. And those goods would start coming in not through the duty paid channels, but they were started to being delivered through the speed post by declaring them as small packet gifts coming in. And that's a big issue, as we will discuss further, that how the courier and the air deliveries coming in through small packet courier is becoming a big challenge for the government to keep the e-commerce space free from the counterfeit goods. Let's start with the consumer. Now, a consumer is obviously looking, when he goes online, he feels that he would be buying goods which are genuine goods, and if he doesn't get that, he obviously feel cheated, and he wants to go back and return those goods. Now, there is no law as such in India for now. Just before the Consumer Protection Act, which was amended very recently, where there is a separate chapter that is devoted on e-commerce guidelines. Before that, there was no specific law relating to return of goods if you buy a counterfeit goods online. It's a separate matter that the good e-commerce portals such as Amazon and Flipkart, and maybe to a certain extent Snapdeal, these portals always had a policy that if you could return the goods within 7 days, sometimes in 14 days after delivery. But in general, there was no law until the Consumer Protection Act, which I mentioned, has recently come in. In fact, earlier this month, whereby there is a specific guideline issued under the Consumer Protection Act that if a consumer wants to return a good, then every e-commerce portal has to have a policy that they should be able to return those goods. So now, insofar as the consumer is concerned, let's assume that he is happy that if he gets a counterfeit good and he is able to return that product, his problem to an extent is solved by that. But a brand owner is obviously not happy. He wants that someone should take that ownership, and they look at the e-commerce portal, and they want the e-commerce portal to take the responsibility to keep that space free from the counterfeit goods. Now here there is a little bit of legal position which contradicts the two comes into play. Now, as per the Information Technology Act, there is a provision on intermediaries. So initially, an intermediary was considered, when the intermediary provision came into the play, they came into play keeping in mind the internet service providers. So you can imagine someone like an Airtel or a Vodafone, and they provide you simply an internet connection. Thereafter, with that internet connection, what you do in the sense that you could use it for the legal means, and you could also use it for the illegal means. So, for example, if someone used the internet to actually demand a ransom for some sort of a virus that he sends around, then can the Airtels and Vodafones of this world be held liable? The Information Technology Act says that no, they are intermediary. They simply provided you the internet connection, and it was not them who should be held responsible. The e-commerce portals have been placed on the similar footing. So the e-commerce portals also qualify as intermediaries, but at the same time, there are the Section 79 of the Information Technology Act, which contains the safe harbor provisions, do specify that intermediaries, if in so long as they are exercising the due diligence in selecting what goes there, and their role is being that of a neutral person. So they are neither playing any role in having these let's say products being placed online. Someone else is uploading those products, then they qualify to an extent as they would qualify as an intermediary, and the Section 79 safe harbor provisions would apply in case the goods sold on a platform like Amazon or Flipkart, taking as an example, are found to be counterfeit. Now, brand owners are obviously not very happy about it. There are also, I may just hasten to add that there is also intermediary guidelines issued under the Information Technology Act, and it also provides that in case there is a counterfeit good found by someone online being sold, particularly the right holder. Here the right holder would mean a brand owner who has the registered rights or who has the copyright in the packaging, or in the let's say if it is a site which is a music site, if he has a copyright in the music, or in the movie where if it is a cinematographic work and if it is available as a pirated version on a website, then under the intermediary guidelines, a notice can be sent to them, and what is popularly known as a takedown notice. And the intermediary or the website or the e-commerce portal has 36 hours to remove that infringing or pirated copyright infringement material or a counterfeit product from their website. And if they do not do so, you can go to the court and seek an order from the court against them. Now, in reality, what happens is that the brand owners find it very difficult to monitor this online space for several reasons, some of which are very obvious. That there are, as if you click on Amazon or Flipkart to look for sports shoes, or even if you put a brand name in there, the number of listing that comes would be running into several hundreds. And it is very difficult for brand owners to actually go and verify each of those products and make sure that these are not counterfeit, or they are not in being sold under a brand name which is similar to their brand name, which could also confuse the consumers. So the brand owners would like that the e-commerce portals should take the responsibility, and they should actually have more robust due diligence mechanism. They should have more robust the KYC mechanisms, so that the rogue sellers the counterfeiters don't come to the market or don't come on their platform. But this issue is contentious because e-commerce portal obviously wants to always take the plea that, look, I am only a simple intermediary and I don't have any role to play. Taking example of one of the actions at the Delhi High Court, which was brought by the T-Series, the Super Cassette Industries, which I'm sure many of you would be familiar with. They produce music under their brand name T-Series. They brought an action against a social media portal called MySpace. Maybe not many of you are familiar with MySpace, but it used to be very popular during 2005, 2006, and it used to be quite popular even thereafter. And at one stage they had about 1 million users, and only after the Facebook and the YouTube came on the block that the popularity of MySpace started to fade. But anyway, coming back to the case, so T-Series was, the MySpace was more like a, you could say, a mashup of YouTube and Facebook, where people could post the music videos. They could, talk about the celebs. They could also talk about their own views on the various, things that were posted. At that time, there were certain, music of which the copyright belonged to the T-Series was posted on the MySpace website by the users, and T-Series brought this action against the MySpace, saying that you are liable for copyright infringement. And of course, the MySpace took the plea of safe harbor under Section 79 provisions of the Information Technology Act. When the matter was heard by the single judge of the Delhi High Court, he took the view that the T-Series was liable, the other way around, the MySpace was liable for copyright infringement. He took into account the, you may want to read the proviso to Section 81 of the Information Technology Act, which actually talks about an exception and says that, in case of a copyright as well as in case of a copyright infringement, there is no safe harbor. And so he said that there is a strict liability here, and I think, and because MySpace is making money by putting in advertisements alongside the various posts of the users, therefore they should be made liable for contributory liability or the secondary infringement, even if they have not committed the primary infringement. The matter went into an appeal. MySpace took that into an appeal to the two judges bench, what we call as the division bench, and the division bench reversed the order of the single judge. The division bench took the view that the intermediary liability provisions under the Information Technology Act are very clear, and therefore we will give them the benefit of doubt. Everything that was being posted on the MySpace website was based on an algorithm. They had not fiddled with anything what was being posted. It was a user-generated posting, and they are not supposed to monitor every post that goes on to their platform. You would see that this is actually a kind of argument even today. Every kind of social media website takes that. In fact, if some of you would have read the judgment, the recent judgment in the contempt case against Prashant Bhushan, the Twitter was made a party for those two tweets that were posted, and that this was also their argument that look, we cannot monitor the space all the time, and we cannot make sure that what users are posting. It is very difficult for us to vet every tweet that is posted, because there are several million tweets which are posted in a particular day. So that is where we were. So the several other cases which happened in various courts post MySpace judgment, they all took the view that intermediaries are not liable. Then recently there was a case brought again in Delhi High Court against the this time it was against a website called ShopClues. There were Snapdeal and several other parties also involved in that action. And Skullcandy, as you would know, that brand, which is the headphones and the earphones they sell, maybe some other related products they sell as well. They brought this action, and the argument there was that in fact the judge when it was a lady judge, so when she heard the matter, she took the view that can an intermediary get away by simply saying that look, I have no role to play, whereas when you look at how the e-commerce portals are operating, they actually facilitate the so she culled out about 26 tasks which the various e-commerce portals were performing, which included some of them which I remember and included were collecting the payments, promoting certain goods, a certain kind of goods as a sponsored goods, helping in delivery of those goods, setting up something what they call as a special programs, like we have Amazon's Prime Delivery, where they help you to deliver goods overnight or in a day's 24 hours delivery. And so that kind of a task, she culled out 26 of them and said that if a majority of these tasks are being performed by the e-commerce portals, then how can they say that we are a intermediary? And and she held ShopClues and some other websites liable for contributory liability for selling counterfeit goods through their e-commerce portals. Now this again went into an appeal to the division bench, and the two judges bench has stayed that order. They did not go into the merits of what the single judge had said, but they simply took the view that even if those how many conditions out of those 26 conditions are to be satisfied can only be determined after the evidence has been recorded. So a full trial needs to be go through before that this kind of a conclusion can be drawn. So just to sum up on this particular topic, that the intermediary liability guidelines are still in place. Section 79 safe harbor provisions are still available for e-commerce player. This is not just in India, but this is a topic of a hot debate throughout the world. The Indian government has actually floated another e-commerce guidelines which actually provide for more strict liability, and that is still under consideration. There is also e-commerce guidelines which the government has come up with, which are also under consideration. In the meanwhile, as I mentioned, the Consumer Protection Act has been amended, and there is a specific chapter which has various provisions which protect the consumers and provides that in case those guidelines are not followed by an e-commerce portal, then the consumer can bring in the action against such portals and claim cost and damages against them, or seek to restrain them from operating. I don't think, no, sorry, they cannot operate an injunction. That is a civil court this thing. But the provisions are actually kind of very strict, and they time will tell. For example, they even want like today when you go and purchase a product, you don't get the address of the seller. But the new consumer protection guidelines say that if you want the address of the seller, and you ask the e-commerce portal, they will have to provide it. You may have also read in the newspapers that the government is also trying to now implement, in fact, they have implemented that you have to also specify the country of origin of the product. So that's my, a few thoughts on the first part of my, presentation on counterfeit goods on e-commerce portals. There are no, special laws to deal with the counterfeit goods. If you go to the court against the seller and make the e-commerce portal as a party, then the infringement provisions provided in the Trademarks Act and the Copyright Act will apply. And also, you will have to satisfy the court that whether the e-commerce portal is liable to be held liable for the infringement, and whether they are an intermediary, and so they can get away by simply giving an undertaking that we have removed those goods. In all fairness, I must say that it is not that the well-known portals that I keep naming, which is Amazon and Flipkart, they do have a lot of policies and procedures in place to keep the space free of counterfeit goods. But again, they have their own limitations because as we have seen, the online space is exploding. The second topic for today's session that I wanted to take was the data privacy issues. Now, the data privacy issue has become a big topic of discussion, primarily because a lot of data from different sources is being collected by different agencies, or when you go online. E-commerce is obviously one such one such entities, or you could say that they collect the data because you have to register, you have to provide your phone numbers, you have to provide an address for delivery, you have to provide your credit card details, etc. To an e-commerce website. And similarly, when you register at the social media websites, you do provide your registration details. Half of the time we don't even realize that how much footprint, data footprint that we are leaving when we are on the e-commerce websites or even on the social media websites, because we keep browsing, and there are algorithms working, and there are AI related apps which collect the data within this thing, who analyze your preferences, and that's how you receive emails from these e-commerce portals, making you recommendations based on your browsing history. The banks are also one of the reasons why data is being collected. Most of the time now the banking is done online. There are several e-wallets such as the Paytm. The Google has got its own now, Google Pay. Amazon has it. So there are hundreds of them now. E-wallets which requires a registration, and they capture your data, they capture your habits of what you are buying. So the question that comes is that what do you do? How do you protect yourself from your data being misused? For now, under the Information Technology Act, we have a section 43 which talks about a certain data which you provide. The basic principle that applies to the data is that the data should be used only for the purpose for which it is collected, and it should not go beyond that. And it is the responsibility and the duty of the person who is collecting such data. When I mean person, I mean any of these social media sites, or any of these e-commerce sites, banks, etc., that they should not use that data for any other purposes without the permission of the person providing the data. Some of them do follow that very strictly, and that is why you would see that most of the websites nowadays, particularly the good ones, would always ask you to tick the box whether you want to receive the marketing material or not. And if you don't, then you can tick the box to say that I don't want any marketing related emails coming from you. Many of the hotels do that as well. When you do the booking, that they want you to know whether you want any marketing related emails, mail shots coming to you or not. But even then, we are the Section 43 of the Information Technology Act is still not adequate, and therefore the government has come up with a new bill, which is what is called as the Personal Data Protection Bill. It has been placed before the Parliament. It has, it was. Is a well-written law based on the law which was recently came into the Europe, which is what is called as the GDPR, and the principles are similar, and there is a hefty fines for all those who collect the data and do not take adequate measures or misuse the data without the permission of the person providing the data. But having said that, we have seen that even during the recent pandemic, that there was a criticism related to the Arogya Setu app. We saw that the Arogya Setu app, though is a useful one, but the government during this time made it to a sense compulsory, and there were a lot of issues on the security side of it. Plus, people were, generally the citizens and everyone was concerned that every 15 minutes that it captures your data, what all information is being captured and how will that information be used. There is no, permission that has been taken from me to use that data. Talking about, how the data can be, difficulties that it can pose. On 15th of August, the Prime Minister announced that we will have a national health mission, and he also mentioned a common platform for collecting the digital data of all the citizens in terms of their health and mapping it out. It concerns me, because it isn't like the Aadhaar, where there is an Aadhaar Act, and there are clearly defined parameters on what will happen to that data. We are talking about every hospital, every medical agency collecting your data, so that the purpose is very laudable. I must appreciate that. One of the things which was very much necessary was that when you go to the hospitals or doctors to consult these days, each one of them asks you to perform the same test, but from their own preferred diagnostic labs. So the idea is that there will be one place where all of your diagnostics will be stored, whatever doctors you've consulted in the past, your history will be there, so that you can get a better treatment. But at the same time, unless there is a real, unless there is a privacy of that data, it could fall into the wrong hands, or it could be exploited by certain companies, so that your very personal and sensitive information can be shared without your permission. And I think that is where we need very quickly these data protection bill to become a law. I was equally concerned, while the new online medical consultation guidelines were floated during the COVID phase, and everybody, and I think personally it was need of the hour, because people don't want to go and visit the hospitals, particularly the OPDs, because everybody was scared about the infection that it may cause. But at the same time, in the absence of the data protection, provisions, it is a cause of worry that there are several these medical agencies which are, or the hospitals or the doctors which are collecting your data, and they have actually no sort of obligation to keep this data secured, and and or to even to highlight that even to go and share that data with let's say a drug manufacturer who is actually doing a research on how many patients are there for a particular ailment. So this is there's a question that someone has come up with, that saying that government to open temples amid constitutional. Please share your answer. I don't know whether that falls under the IP area that I am discussing today. So the constitutional validity of temples being opened is something which I will probably keep aside from this discussion that we are having. The other issue that comes with the data is not just the data privacy, but also the fact that we have seen that there is a case of hacking of data, and the theft of data which is happening, and therefore it is very necessary that this data protection bill should come into the place, so that there are enough and adequate measures taken by agencies that collect the data. Coming to my third topic that within the IP in the online space, which I wanted to discuss, was the piracy in the movies as well as in the music industry. Now, you would have seen that or probably read that before a movie is released, there are torrents of that movie available online, and people are freely downloading it, and it obviously causes hefty loss to the, apart from being illegal and it being something which is against the law. It also causes loss to the government in terms of taxes. It causes loss to the producer of the movies, and it obviously causes loss to the cinema halls or the movie halls, who spend a lot of money to attract the and pay a lot of money to exhibit those movies, and pay share the revenues with the sometimes with the producer of the movie. So what has become common, and the courts have actually done some very good job in this respect. Before I jump into how the courts have come into play, I think the challenge that we have seen happening in the music and the and the movie industry is how the technology has evolved. So while in the good old days we were talking about the physical form of piracy, so it was a different kind of the strategy that you would need to devise to seize either the CDs, or before that there used to be music cassettes and the VHS in the physical form that you would go and actually seize from the shops that were selling them. The things have become much more easier because everything is gone online, and as I mentioned, you could download those through the Pirates Bay and various other such websites which make a hefty amount of money. I mean, I was reading Pirates Bay made $3 million as revenue last year through advertising, because it has a number of visitors coming in to download those pirated movies. Similar is the case with the music industry as well. So and at the same time, what has happened is that the complexity of this is also increased, because now you can actually, each consumer can actually now have services like Dropbox, Google Drive, where you get a good amount of space to store the data, and so the files are shared also through these services by people to download directly to your computers, and it is very difficult to then catch hold of such infringements. So So there was recently a case where the government where the issue was debated that how can we control this and what is it that the courts can do in order to stop this piracy. In this case, the case was brought by UTV against several hundreds websites. So I think one of the things which the most of the producers have started to do is to approach the court of what we call as the John Doe orders, which is against the unknown person. The John Doe name came from an order that was granted in a case in US. We call them as Ashok Kumar orders generally, because we, instead of the making John Doe, we make an unknown defendant and we call it as Ashok Kumar. And primarily what has started to happen is that the most of the producers of the movie, or the owner of the copyright of the movies, or software equally, because software is also now started to be distributed and sold online. Nobody buys the CD of a software these days. Most companies allow you to go online and buy the software directly from them. So the software is also started to be distributed online, and in those cases, most of the time the producer of the movies would make all the ISPs as a defendant. They would also make the government two department, which is Department of Telecommunication as well as the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology as the defendants as well, purely to seek direction from the government that every ISP should shut down the websites which are distributing these pirated materials. Now you can imagine that the courts have been very progressive in their outlook to grant these orders, because they do realize that ultimately to distribute a pirated material, the pirater would need an ISP connection, either through likes of Airtel, Vodafones, and there are several other smaller as well players in throughout the countries. I think last I counted was almost like 30 plus ISPs are there which provide internet services. So there are several other players which actually buy the bandwidth from the likes of the Airtel and the Vodafones of this world, and then they distribute that band or sell that bandwidth to a shorter area, in a smaller area at a much better speed, etc. So you need to make all of those people a party and get the order restraining them from further distributing this material, from further distributing the pirated materials. Now, one of the issues that keep coming is that if you shut down a website, then the entire website is shut down, but that website may have other materials as well. And the people who advocate freedom of speech, they would say that it is very harsh that you shut down the entire website, whereas there is only a small amount of, or there is only there were let's say some materials of counterfeit goods, or there were some material of movies or torrents that were being distributed by this website. The Delhi High Court in this UTV case clearly said that we don't have to go to the quantitative test. We will apply a qualitative test, and we will see what is the nature of business being carried out by this website. If the applying the qualitative test, if there is it appears that the website is actually trying to hide its identity, because the beauty of the internet is that you can be anonymous, and you can use aliases, and you can hide yourself by giving even a wrong address. Even today you can actually register a domain name by giving a completely wrong address. So that happens all the time. There are equally services which are privacy protected, and you can actually use them to hide your identity. So the High Court in this case came to the conclusion that, look, we have to apply the qualitative test to determine whether website appears to be carrying the business which is overwhelming, illegal business, and if that is the case, then we will shut down this website. Another important principle that the High Court came in this was that the phenomenon that was noticed was that the moment it's like a whack-a-mole, game that is going on in case of these counterfeiters, that you shut down one site, they mirror it, and they create another website, which is very easy for them to do. So they kept on, creating the mirror websites, and how do you shut down those? So the court, in this case, realized that this is what was happening, and they gave the liberty to the copyright owners to say that, look, in case you find someone has shut down a website but moved that same material to another website, it is a mirror of the original website, then you don't need to bring a fresh action. You can actually make them a party in the existing action. You come to the court and we will grant you an order against that party. So I think what because I'm almost coming to the end of the hour and leaving the a bit about some time for any questions to be asked by anyone. I just wanted to say that, look, the online space is evolving every day. There are technologies on which companies are working every day, and their purpose is to make the consumer life more comfortable, to have a better experience. But in the bargain, what happens is that many of these people who want to be on the other side of the law, they see it as an opportunity equally to distribute the counterfeit goods or to provide pirated material online. Unfortunately, our attitude is such that we at times buy those goods and services without realizing that we are actually encouraging the illegal businesses, and we are buying these goods without thinking that, look, we are not consuming them, they're just going on our system. But please do realize that these days your systems are your life. If your computer goes bad, because of any of the materials that you download, the amount of inconvenience that it will cause you, and imagine these, if it would be the time when the pandemic was going on, I mean, how, helpless you would feel without any help from anyone to sort that out. Equally, there are some of them who are taking it to the level where, they are demanding, they're hacking into the computers, because there are, sometimes we download certain files which give these hackers the opportunity to get into our systems and, thereafter demand ransomware. So just be very careful, when you are approaching these issues. They are not, the online space is for your benefit, but at the same time, it can, be quite tough and challenging if you are not very careful of where and what you download. How the offers will be a lot online, and there are everyday job offers, there are everyday offers to win prizes and things like those, but they really wouldn't help. So with that, I think I want to stop, because we have less than 10 minutes before this session gets over, or my time gets over. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them now. So the floor is open for questions, please. Okay, hearing none, I think I would take that as good and bad both. Maybe I was very impressive, maybe I was not very clear, but anyway, thank you very much for joining today. enjoyed the session and sharing my thoughts. This space has a lot other issues which, if the time permit, I would have shared my experiences on those as well. But it was still enjoyable session. I thank the organizers, the Desi Kanun, for having me here. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great evening. Bye bye.